I'm here at the Temple of the Winds, which is a wonderful structure in the Royal Botanic Gardens in Melbourne. It's a wonderful spot for reflecting. Like, we've got the MCG and basically the Yarra River on that side, and it's just a great spot to think back on things. So because we're thinking back, I'm going to think back to the how I got the story, how I actually found Karsten and Sheridan, and reflect on the first time I ever actually heard this story about the Horne family. It was about a year ago that it happened. Basically, I was going through a phase where I was doing a lot of short videos and competitions and things like that, just so I could get my skills up. And there was a competition that went out called the Nomad Travel Scholarship. What you had to do was find an inspirational travel story and tell it in under 3 minutes. So I actually made it. Yeah, I made it in this position right here, where I put the call out on Facebook, and it looked like this. I found it now, and I've got it on the screen. I'd called out and said, if there was anyone with an inspiration travel story, they should message me. Now, a girl who I hadn't actually met, she was a few trimesters below me, at the uni, she'd commented on it. Her name was Sheridan. Tagging Karsten Horne, and then he responded. He said, "Happy to help. I have plenty of stories, including one that started with trying to sail to England in a rubber dinghy. Part of the story is captured in this article." And I didn't really read much. He said something. She said something about how he went to East Timor for something, and I thought, okay, well, let me see how this goes. So this is something I'm very much in favour of. If somebody comes up to you with an idea or a plan or something you should do, and you have the time to do it, well, I think you should do it. So that's how it started. I walked out the door and I thought, bugger it, let's organise a time to meet. So we'd organised a Saturday to meet up, and it was going to be at his work. Caught a train, and I got there. And it was an interesting thing because he showed me around his office and his workplace. When he sat down, I told him, what I was doing. I was going to make this 3-minute travelling story. And instantly I could see his face changing. He was like, oh, okay, well, my story is going to go a little longer than 3 minutes. And at that time I was like, okay, tell me anyway. And that was the moment. That was the moment where I could have just said, oh, well, it might not be for me, let's not listen. Anyway, I listened in, and I'm going to show you some footage from that original time. And this is how I first found out about the story, because he just told me it all together. And you can probably hear my excitement in some of this. So I'll just show you some of the original footage. Here we go. All right, so tell me about these 2 years.
Okay, so there's two. I guess it's a 2-year journey. Mm-hmm. So my brother and I, we're sitting there watching the grand final, 1972. Brother's going for Carlton, I'm going for Richmond. And Dad walks in and said, hey, I want to build a boat. We go, yeah, that's cool, Dad, you want to build a boat? No, we're going to build a boat and we're going to sail it to England. So we had nets all around the outside of the boat with soccer balls, like these round soccer balls that we've got for a couple of dollars each. But he was saying to the press, look, one of those balls could hold a man in whatever conditions. So I was there to demonstrate that. So, my brother would stand on the side of the boat and he'd throw it off, I'd jump off, and I'd be like that. So here I am on national television holding onto this ball going, hey, we've got life-saving devices.
That's brilliant.
We lived with a group of Torres Strait Islanders. I remember significantly, that was probably about the stage where shoes were pretty much optional in our lives. The only way of doing it was an incredibly difficult mountain road over the other side of Timor, and it was during wet season and generally it was closed, or there was a barge that went once a week from Delhi to the border. And look, we're a pretty fit family, I think we can walk. And then we got to Sumatra by train where the first symptoms of my dad's malaria came out. The day before we landed in England, my mother's mother died. And so she was there in time for the funeral, but not there in time to see her mother.
It was around about this stage of the interview where I kind of lost all interest in this 3-minute documentary, and instead we started talking about the prospect of this being a feature film. And I left the camera rolling, which was really cool, and I'll show you a little bit of like just how talking about it afterwards. Where did I start? That was remarkable.
Yeah. So
It's a remarkable story.
It's not a bad one, is it?
I love, I don't know.
And there's a lot of detail I could bring into all of that, but obviously...
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Completely. I mean, even for a feature film, you'd have to cut some. You'd actually have to cut.
And it'd make a really good film.
It'd make a really good film, and especially the. I think it would be like an Australian classic with the dinghy, and the reporters coming and
You can imagine it in the 70s.
You can imagine that.
Yeah.
You can really imagine it. It's actually got a really big.
And there was the thing the other was
like
it last
Little
year?
Miss Sunshine Field, but with the whole journey. And since then, we've met up a whole bunch of times. We've spoken about making this film and more than that, we've really started to put the steps to make it, and that's why this vlog series is going up like it is and things like that. So it's I don't know. I guess the takeaway of this is just get outside and do things. I was looking so desperately to find a feature film script or something that my biggest next thing, and in the end it found me. So just before I end this weekly update, basically next week we won't have a weekly update. We'll have a different type of video, and that is because I will be running my first marathon ever this Sunday. So that'll be cool. Anyway, it's me for today. I will see you next week.